Initiate your narrative by starting a conversation and activating change within your community. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Shift the Narrative, the fourth official podcast of Silver Needle Runway. I'm your host, Janella Zagara, the Student Communications Director for the 37th Annual Silver Needle Runway Show. This year's theme, entitled Reaction, embodies the boldness of a generation who wants to make a change. We are here to fight for what is right, and with doing that, we will empower our community around us. This podcast emphasizes the pillars that shape the S&R brand, with each episode focusing on a different core value, including diversity, sustainability, community, transparency, and leadership. Each of our guests has shown their dedication to integrating these values into their careers and recognize the importance of sharing their knowledge. The Shift the Narrative podcast is here to provide a platform for the students, faculty, and staff of Marist College to highlight their efforts in making a positive change. This 5-episode miniseries will invigorate our listeners to make a statement and fight for the change that they believe in. Initiate your narrative, initiate your reaction, subscribe to Shift the Narrative to pave the way for a better future. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Shift the Narrative, the fourth official S&R podcast. Joining me today, I have two very incredible guests, Professor Jamie Ross and Professor Anna Ortega-Johnson. Both of these Marist Fashion professors are actively working towards raising awareness on sustainability and responsibility in and out of the fashion industry. Professor Jamie Ross has had a tremendous amount of experience in fashion, including education, consulting, and leadership. Professor Anna Ortega-Johnson brings a new perspective to the table with her knowledge in sustainable practices beyond fashion. I had the best time with these two guests as they shared their insights on living more sustainably. Hi, Anna. Hi, Jamie, and welcome to Shift the Narrative. We're so happy to have you here on the podcast today.
Oh, we're so grateful to be here, and thank you for inviting us.
Yes, of course.
Good morning. Thank you for
everything. So both of you clearly have a lot of experience in the fashion industry and in sustainability. Would you be able to share a little bit about your careers and your experiences that led you to Marist?
So essentially, I came up here to be one of the panelists for the senior design competition, the Silver Needle Runway, and I sort of fell in love with the environment here. But I was at the time still in the industry and teaching part-time, but working with a lot of clients on sustainability issues, and so I was very attracted to the school environment and was excited when they invited me to be a part of it.
I came up here many years ago. Was at fashion at the time. I was trying to find a career, believe it or not, in agriculture. Wow. At the same time, I was missing fashion. I really was, and this an opportunity here at Marist presented itself, and I said, hey, why not? If I get it, that's great, that's awesome, and if I don't, at least I tried. So I applied for the position, and I got it, fortunately, and so I've been teaching, I think, since 2016, which I say reluctantly, not because it's not accurate, it's more that I'm so surprised that it's been a considerable amount of time.
Wow, that's amazing. We're so excited to have you both here today to see what you have to say about sustainability. For us at S&R, it's one of our core pillars, and we try our best to make our brand as sustainable as possible by making every decision with sustainability in mind. We do reuse majority of our materials from past shows in our projects or events that we put on for this year's show. And when purchasing new items, we do make sure that it'll be used again in the future and that it'll live like a longer life than other products do. So to start off today's episode, in your own words, could you each tell us what sustainability means to you?
So because I teach Fashion 306 sustainability, I kind of challenge the students off the, at the beginning of the semester, because I do feel like sustainability is a word that gets overused.
For sure.
And I kind of say, okay, let's come up with some other ways we can talk about it. And even in our own fashion program, we talk about responsible fashion. And I think that kind of encompasses a bit more of the three pillars that go into sustainability. And so when I think about sustainability, it's more of a holistic approach. And I think when we start the semester, we dive into these three big ideas. The first one being diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging.
Yes.
And so we have some great conversations around that pertaining to the fashion industry. And then, it's fantastic that we have our new VP of DEI, Edward Antonio, who is
he's amazing.
Amazing, and certainly also helping to raise awareness on the timing of certain issues and bringing those to our awareness as well. The second thing that we kind of dive into is how people are doing business, and are they providing for equitable solutions when they're going in and working in particular countries, and not going in with a colonialist mindset, like you're doing a country or an area a favor. And it's crazy, even just this past week, they found a sweatshop in Los Angeles, and people were being paid, ridiculously low wages. So it's not just like it happens globally, it's still unfortunately happening in this country. And then the third thing that we really tackle is looking at how fashion impacts the environment. And so it had been cited that we came in number 2 after oil as the most polluting industry, but that has since been kind of re-evaluated to somewhere around, we come in between 5 and 10. Most estimates put us at about 6th most polluting industry, which still leaves lots of room.
Pretty high.
Leaves lots of room for opportunity. And we spend a lot of time talking about the impact of textiles and fabrications, which make up about somewhere between 60 and 70% of your environmental impact, and even getting into better options in leather alternatives and options to fur these days.
Oh, that's amazing. Anna, how about you?
So if I could take your title of this podcast, and if you allow me, can I shift the narrative more towards nature? Because as I mentioned before the interview a couple of months back, I think, I didn't teach, or I would not even teach. When I was in the fashion industry, sustainability was beyond. It was
You didn't
not
care
heard
about
of.
it.
They thought sustainability was like, cute little animals. They didn't. There was no conversation about it. But what I like to shift it is more focused on, and of course this is a personal interest, nature. And just to go back a little bit about the word, so sustainability, if we're going to get into the origins of it just a little bit, it dates back to the Industrial Revolution, pre-Industrial Revolution, and it has evolved over, like everything else does, over the course of time. And in 1987, in the UN, there was a document. That's not the right word. There was something more. It was heavier than that, called the Common Future, a report. Excuse me. And in there, that's when that definition of what's the proper definition of almost that, use what you can now, but remember for the future generations. And that's
I do think that that's a good point, because true sustainability assumes that your resources are finite,
right,
and that you should use them accordingly.
Right. And that conversation has been going on for a very, very long time, close to 250 years since the Industrial Revolution, and it was a lot of pulling and going in different directions, which leads us up to the crisis we're in currently globally, because of fashion and because of other massive industries. So I like to shift the narrative and talk about the beauty of nature and not move away from consumption, but move away from a conversation of sustainability, consumption, business, and say sustainability, consume more nature, get to know your local area, and perhaps something will inspire you to connect and say, and we look at consumption because it's affecting you, your area, nature, your purchases, and the globe. So that's how I like to approach it, if that's okay with you.
No,
And Anna, to me, is our local expert.
Yes.
I've learned so much through things that the students have told me she shared with them, or she shares with me.
And that's like exactly why I wanted to have you both on the podcast episode. I feel like you guys like you were mentioning, Anna, you both bring a different perspective of sustainability. Anna with the nature, and then Jamie with all like the fashion knowledge. So to me, you're both experts.
Oh, thank you. But I think the goal is the same.
Right.
Yes.
It's a common
Awareness,
passion.
awareness, a passion, and also introduction. Because I think, just to jump a little bit, I do believe your generation, the Gen Z, millennials, and I think Gen X's, and all the generations, I think we're all very interested. But I do
Yes.
believe there's, even with all the information we're getting, there's still not a connection to
Yeah, exactly.
There's still room for education.
Yeah.
There's still
Yeah.
so much room for
Yeah.
education.
And that like goes into my next question.
Sure.
Actually, I feel like the younger generations are again a little more hesitant when it comes to living more sustainably, because it can become a little bit more expensive, and they might not even know where to begin. So, what advice would you give someone who wants to live more sustainably but doesn't know where to start?
So, I always tell students and just anybody who cares to listen to me that nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
Nobody's
Right.
perfect, and I think it really helps to kind of look at it in terms of baby steps.
yes.
I don't think one of the things I have students do early on in the semester is do a little inventory of their denim.
Oh, yes. I had to do this for a class too.
Yes, exactly. So it's just a little exercise to see, a lot of the students don't realize the impact of cotton production
Yes.
and the impact of denim manufacturing, and just that one little exercise where I have students who give me their denim numbers and I have them actually count it, and I've had figures over, way over 30 pairs of jeans, and then they'll come back and they'll say, to tell you the truth, Professor, I only really wear 3 or 4 on regular rotation. So the exercise was really, really helpful to think about that. And, I really challenged them over the course of the semester, and I challenge anybody to kind of think about your own circularity plan.
Yeah.
So is it, swapping things with friends and family? I know, for instance, like the boots I have on today, my sister-in-law bought them on sale and she thought she was going to fit into them.
Oh, no.
And they're not even her size, but they're my size. And
Oh,
she
that's
was like,
perfect.
you know what, I bought them and I didn't wear them and I thought of you.
You take them.
Yeah, and that's what we do. And so I have kind of a group that I swap and trade with, but we're actually having a swap and shop. To me, it's like, kind of think about that circularity, and then ultimately, how do you find a way to give something a second, a third, a fourth life?
Yes.
Can you shop secondhand and pre-loved and pre-owned, whether it's vintage or ThredUp or any of the websites, Real or Poshmark?
Yeah.
How can you manage your own circularity a little bit better?
Yeah.
I agree with Jamie. You have to take baby steps, and you
Yeah.
also have to know where to start. So is it more important for you to eat local? Is it more important for you to buy secondhand local? We're really fortunate that this college is located in a very rich region of New York State. The Hudson Valley that goes all the way down to Westchester and just below the capital region is very rich in agriculture, in fibers, raising animals for their fiber. It's rich in independent bookstores, which are like, well, what does that have to do with it? Well, if you even just visit one of the little independent bookstores or even the big box stores, because we take pride in our local culture, you can go and just look at the bulletin board and see announcements and events that are going on. So I guess the first question is, where would you like to focus on? Because it is a big thing to ask a student, or even consider a family of 4 or 5, to say, okay, why aren't you shopping sustainable?
Right.
So is it food that you're interested in? Is it clothing that you're interested in? In this region, like I said, you can walk into a bookstore or a farmer's market, a big box bookstore even. I tend to go into the more local or used bookstores and just look at the bulletin boards there and the announcements, and there's a ton of information of where you could start living or start taking little steps towards a more, I don't even know if sustainable,
Just like a responsible, like.
just maybe more even open your eyes.
Yeah.
So like, let's just say you go, and again, I love nature. I always have since I was a little kid. Well, it's just something that I have, like I have dark hair. But I think if you start connecting to where you're from, even when you leave and go to New York City or back home or across the world, you start connecting to your local area from a nature perspective, from a commerce perspective, from people perspective.
Yeah.
I think then little by little you'll say, oh, that little farmer's market, I know it's a little out of my budget, but the lettuce I bought there has lasted me like 3 or 4 weeks because the morning of it's being cut or the night before it's being cut. Or I go to my local farmer's market and the booth that has the wool, the person, the owner of the farm, is having a workshop on knitting, and now I just knitted myself a pair of gloves. So I think it's just kind of really connecting to where you live, and even if you don't live in this region, search a little, go a little deeper and see these little, maybe smaller places who want to build this more connected community, which can equal to sustainability.
Yeah.
Right, and I do think it kind of spews off into other areas.
It does.
Once you start in one
Exactly.
area,
Yeah.
it catches on in other areas of your life.
It does, and then when you start saying, okay, I'm starting to catch on to this, then you go back to fashion and say, well, I'm really intrigued by Stella McCarthy and this mycelium. I'm really intrigued by Gabriella Hearst, by her efforts in sustainability. So it just starts expanding and expanding. But start little and say, you know what? I shop sustainability for my food. And you can't be not a perfectionist. What did you say?
Yeah.
No, you
earlier?
can't be a perfectionist
You
because
can't.
some students, I think, once they start taking sustainability or they get involved in sustainability, the thinking is like, oh, well, now I better get rid of all of my fast fashion.
Yeah.
But that's not the answer
No, that's not
either,
the
right? Like, so the things that you did buy or you made those decisions, how do you take care of them and prolong their life
Right,
as well?
right. We also have to remove from our conversation getting rid of things.
Right.
Those are really like ugly words. We should be taking care of things.
Yeah.
And just like Jamie's boots, this was my mother's, so it's second generation. This was my mother's, so now it's second generation. This skirt is mine, and these boots are mine. But they're not new. This I know dates back from the 80s. But my mother was able to take care of it. She passed it on to me. I'm able to take care of it. But even in the fast fashion stuff, take care of your stuff. Stop saying get rid of things.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah.
I think we really have to remove that from the conversation.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I'll advise students like get a micro mesh bag that keeps
I have one
all
of
of the
those.
microfibers out of the water. When you're laundering, try to launder less. Try to launder with better detergent that is non-toxic. And and then I also often advise them to get a little lint shaver.
Yes.
Like the pill.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That helps a lot.
Yeah. I feel like that kind of goes into our next question as well, which is what do you look for in a brand and how do you ensure they are sustainable with all of the performative sustainability and greenwashing that is out there right now?
So, certainly one of the things that we look at early on in the semester is Good on You, which is a fairly reliable app and a fairly reliable website that students can visit and try to determine some of the ratings on the brands that they like. But it's certainly not all inclusive. So it isn't easy. It isn't easy from
It's
a
not
surface
easy.
viewpoint.
And it's very, I'm sorry to interrupt, it's very time consuming. You're busy, your families are busy.
Brands are not transparent.
I
That
think
too,
the American consumer, and the reason I say American is because we live in this country, and I haven't done any research abroad. Brands are putting a lot of responsibility on our shoulders, and I think
They're putting it on the consumers for sure.
I think how can you, again, let's go back to the family of 4, and I'm talking 4 children with 2 parents.
Yeah.
I'm not talking, all right, who have means, but they're busy, they're raising their children. Why do we as the consumer have to buy recycle, research, promote. I think, I mean, in that aspect, the influencers, thank goodness we can turn to some influencers, but I think as the American consumers, we're very powerful, and I think the brands, whether it's car brands, food brands, fashion brands, outdoor brands, I think we have been really kind to them by the shift. I love this word.
Right, shifting the narrative. No, it
We
really
really
is.
have. We should be a little bit more like.
Right.
I know we
No,
definitely need to be
you-
pushing back to the brands
Yeah,
more, and I think
exactly.
that if we as consumers did that and we like held them accountable, they would be like, okay, well, there's this many people coming at us right now. What can we do to
Right,
change
right. Like just,
our practices?
and I'm sorry, Jamie, because I get a little.
Yeah, she's
It's
passionate.
passionate. It's the
There's
passion.
Recycling is a perfect example.
Yeah.
Okay, I grew up when they introduced it, and we had to clean it, steam it, do this, all this stuff, which I did because I
Yeah.
love the earth.
Mm-hmm.
Grotesque little number gets recycled, and whatever doesn't get recycled gets converted into some type of other chemical or fuel that is harmful.
Yeah.
And there's, so I think we've spoiled brands and from
So
a
right.
wide
Yeah,
range.
so right. I try to ask, what I do a lot of times is I'll really try to go behind, and I encourage students and anybody to do this, to kind of go behind the scenes of your favorite brands, because for example, Reformation, Reformation has a pretty good picture up front.
Yeah.
Right, but I have a student who's been working there for years in various positions and has now worked her way up to a fairly high level. And so I will pick her brain on Reformation and what they're doing, and it's funny, she still calls me Professor Ross.
Yeah,
But she
very
says,
respectful.
yes, very respectful, but she'll say, Professor Ross, the front story and the back story are two very different things.
Yeah.
For example, they had brought in a dress that was made out of a supposedly sustainable fabric, but then it was sort of a going out dress, and they put a lot of chain detail, very heavy chain detail on it. Well, the chain detail, the fabric that they used did not support the chain detail, and so the chain detail was falling off. When customers were coming in and saying, this dress is falling apart, I can't wear it, they had no plan in place. And so people were literally posting on social media about how they were throwing the dress away.
Yes.
Okay. She said the back end, their stockroom is an absolute mess.
Oh God.
Anybody who knows me knows I have a love-hate relationship with H&M. The very same reasons.
Yeah.
They do a lot of good on the front end. Their foundation is amazing, but on the back end, they're overproducing. They're underpaying.
Exactly. Yeah.
Dig deeper. I think.
Well,
dig
also,
deeper.
and again, because I do live up here, and ask questions, which I tell you students all the time, don't I? I even tell you, ask questions even if you're not 100% feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Right. Challenge
You
everything.
have to ask the hard questions.
Challenge everything politely.
Politely, exactly. Because remember, the person that's receiving the questions, they might not be the go-to person.
Yeah.
But if you maybe even just plant a baby seed, a little seed, by asking questions of saying, all right, I'll buy this, but who can I talk to about where it came from?
Yeah.
Who can I talk to? Just ask questions. Even you have the luxury of social media. Even ask questions on social media.
Yeah, I feel like social media is a good way to get at brands. That's where they are always looking at engagement. So even just like an Instagram comment.
Right.
But it would be nice if we could move from a call-out culture
Right.
to an accountability culture.
Right.
Too.
Yeah.
Right.
That brands would take more of the
Yeah.
impetus to.
And I think we also have to start asking questions nicely. And I was very guilty of being, sharp. But we also have to, and I think coming out of the pandemic, I'm like, honey, you have and a lot of other things, just all this stuff. But I had 2 incidents that have nothing to do with this, and I called because I was like, but then I said,
becoming my mother.
Here.
Okay.
So
calling on everything now.
So, but I did talk myself. I said, you're going to handle this to solve a situation, to get answers. You're not going to harass the person.
Right.
It's not that and the person even thanked me. They're like, every time someone calls to complain, I get yelled at, cursed. He's like, this is the first time that someone hasn't. And I got my results. And I was calm. And you're right, Jamie, this is not about shaming or, sure, are things happening in the back end that we don't want to happen? Of course. There are many reasons. Could it be because there's profit involved? Of course there is. But then there's also old systems involved. Remember, I started this saying, this has been around for 250 years, the Industrial Revolution, and we're still in it.
Yeah.
If we think we're going to just stop this tsunami, no, it's baby steps.
It's going to take just the same amount of time as it has been going on.
It's going to take a while.
Yeah.